Um, so I wanted to review Barbarian, in my style, which is about 3.5 weeks late. So I get about, 10 views because no one gives a shit anymore. And, certainly I understand that. It's just when I get around to seeing movies. And, I just started this channel for fun. And, we'll build it up. And, I think eventually, it will just be something fun to do for a couple minutes. I mean, it's why I shoot this actually on in vertical mode. Number one, I think YouTube is getting people used to vertical viewing from their shorts and stuff like that. So I do see it headed that way. And number two, I put it on a DJI gimbal, and I use this microphone here because yeah, I didn't want to go out and I had this idea, but I didn't want to go out and be like, oh, spend like $1,000 on this whole setup. Even though I do have a DSLR, but that becomes taking the SD card out and putting it in the computer, and then editing it, and I want to do other things with my time, but I think this is cool. So today I want to review Barbarian, but I want to say that as I love spooky season, I love the Halloween season. I know a lot of people who I follow on YouTube who get to this time of year. They're usually reviewing the classics and having some fun, and certainly I'm gonna start going back to the classics. I don't know if I'll review them, but I'm kind of done. Pearl was my absolute favorite of this season, of this Halloween season, and I'm kind of done with this nihilistic kind of shit that I'm seeing. I gotta be honest with you. Like, there's no zero in my opinion. Now, when I get into Barbarian, I actually am gonna go over some really cool stuff that I think was really clever and risky to put into a horror film. But I did want to start by saying that because I saw an article today that Scorsese was making comments on, judging everything by numbers and stuff like that, and financial numbers and stuff, and that it was degrading cinema in a way. And obviously, I agree with him. And if he says something, I usually give it a couple weeks even, because his comment on content, how like films were becoming content and stuff like that. It took me a while to actually kind of digest that and realize that. And look and take a look around and say, "Holy shit!" He's absolutely right about this. But the other thing that I'm seeing, which is unfortunate, and it's one of the reasons why I watch a lot of short films and stuff like that, and even in the short films, I find that there's just like a lot of calling cards, and they're just kind of like, trying to get a studio's attention and stuff, and I don't blame them for it. I mean, you want to try and make a career for yourself doing this. Um, Especially when you're younger and stuff like that. So it's not anything that I fault, filmmakers for doing. But, approaching cinema so that you're actually observing a culture, and, you as a filmmaker are speaking through the images and talking to the audience. I think is very important. I think that's one of the things that Pearl was able to do, because Ty West is not only a seasoned, but I think a genuine and a sincere filmmaker, and he's really got a great message within. It's kind of a depressing message, but it's a message, and he's reaching out and kind of talking to the audience with compassion. If anyone feels that way, and of course it's exaggerated to make it a horror film and make it as entertaining as possible. I mean. That's the point of filmmaking. I mean, if you just want to talk, you can start a YouTube page and just talk about your message if you want to the audience, and not bother with months and months of making a film. With Pearl, I definitely saw a genuine love for the cinema, and a director who's literally reaching out to the audience with a clear message, a clear cultural message. When I'm seeing Smile and I see Barbarian, I'm seeing great attempts at first films. The guy who directed Barbarian, he's directed before. He's also an actor and stuff like that. So he's not like completely new to the game as I think Parker Finn was, with Smile. And again, I also understand that it's your first attempt. You want to do something grand, and you want to pull out all the stops so that the studios and the agents and all this stuff will still be making calls to you and stuff like that, because I think a lot of people might not get that, like, if you're directing a picture, let's say you have a one success. You're in Los Angeles. You walk into this great restaurant and you have reservations. The whole restaurant wants to talk to you, because you've had a success, and you're the talk of the town. As soon as you bomb, it's a very different experience when you walk into that restaurant, and it's because I've known assistants to directors and stuff like that. It's nothing that I've, experienced personally and stuff like that, obviously. But that is what happens, and it's important that you try and get a fucking hit, to stay within that system if that's what you want to do. I'm seeing the potential right now for people to kind of step outside of that system and not be run by it. And I think, again, Scorsese was right. When at first I'm like, oh, come on. Because if you talk to older directors in their 50s, before YouTube, they seem to have this idea that it's like, oh, it's so easy now. You just, you pick up your iPhone or whatever, and you tell a story and you throw it on YouTube, and at least you have an audience. And they're absolutely right, but it's also, the other thing is, when you have to process film, get the film camera, edit it on a flatbed, probably rent out the space for a flatbed, stuff like that. It lessens the oversaturation of content, I guess you could say, and it lessens the competition, And believe me, there are still people, from film schools and stuff like that at that time who made brilliant stuff. It just didn't work out for them, I'm sure, but it's more of a Hunger Games game than I think these older directors realize, because they're kind of looking back at it like, oh shit, if I had this and I didn't have to rely on the film festivals and stuff like that. They are right, but you have to make something that's great almost every single time, or else you're just not going to get views, because there's so much competition for eyeballs, I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary. But that's actually, I want to make another video about, like, modern content and the content economy is what I call it. I do want to stay focused on Barbarian, but I just, before I get into the good, and I don't think there's too much bad, to be honest with you, but the good, I do just want to make a statement that's like, hey, I mean, this really isn't what, this isn't what, like, this isn't how a real filmmaker approaches stuff. A real filmmaker, I think, approaches things because they have something compassionate and genuine to say about who we are in the moment. And they try and communicate that with love, and not like emotional love, it's a hard love, like some sort of truth, trying to put things into perspective through a story. And if you're not, it's kind of nihilistic, and that's kind of the thing that kind of has disturbed me about Smile and about Barbarian. But let's get into the really good stuff about Barbarian, though, because I don't want to throw you off here. So again, I don't really go over plot. I want to go over themes, and I want to go over ideas. To be honest with you, I'm just not a plot person. Like, half the time I forget what the fucking plot is. I know something's driving the story, good for it, and I know if I'm getting bored or if I'm not. So it kind of goes in chapters, this film. So, like, the first chapter is about introducing the house, kind of feeling uneasy about what the guy is doing there, because she rented the Airbnb. And then, they have really nice, kind of conversation, getting to know each other. So I think the filmmaker is just trying to establish why she would go back to this house, this woman, who I think that actress did a great job, and she should definitely be in more stuff. Sarsgaard always does really good. I think he's kind of interesting and kind of understated and stuff like that. So they go through the horror portion of the film. They set up what's in the house. They set up what's kind of what you need to be cautious of. And then all of a sudden, this kind of happy music comes up, and we're following a director who's been accused of a sexual misconduct, and it's a lot more than that, but that's what I want to say. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty interesting. And it was interesting and effective because the character had a beginning, middle, and an end. And I think the audience is meant to say, well, what kind of accusation was this? Are they just trying to ruin their career? That was really culturally pretty cool. And then by the end of it, and just the things that he's saying, you're like, ugh. And certainly by the end of the film, you're kind of rooting for him to, be taken out and stuff like that. So the directing there to give a beginning, middle, and end that's totally remote from what's just been established, which is the horror portion of it, that was really talented and that was really cool. And that was, I feel, like a real genuine kind of a cultural statement that's understated, like I'll talk about the culture war stuff in another video too, because I don't think that's healthy either. Like really bad, real bad on both sides, real bad for the audience and stuff. And then we get back, so we've already realized, what horrors are in the house. Then we get in there, and then in the middle is, what these people are actually doing down there and stuff like that, and the fact that she wants to treat these people like a baby and stuff like that. And then, of course, the director has us kind of not root for the guy even more, because it's kind of like, oh, what's this guy really about, Then we get into what I thought was the most interesting part, which is we see the house from basically, like, let's say the 50s or the 60s. I believe it's the 50s. And the neighborhood is just so different. The houses all look great. And it really establishes, like, what it used to be and what it is now. That was another great kind of commentary on what's going on, because I've traveled the country a couple times. There are places that really look like this neighborhood that the film portrays in the present day of the story. It's just, you go through New Orleans, you go through Detroit. There's neighborhoods that look like they were, post World War II Berlin or something. I mean, it's really weird. Like, a lot of people who might just be in, like, the cities, like the West and East Coast, or, there's beautiful places in the middle of the country too. Kansas, I thought, was gorgeous, stuff like that. But you don't see a lot of the times these environments represented on film or the news or whatever, because it really does look like the people in power are just sucking these places dry, and it's really sad. It's like, if you could see America as it really is and incorporate these rundown places, it's kind of like, what is really fucking happening, in the country. You know what I mean? So that was another really cool element, and the filmmaking at that was my favorite portion of the film, as far as seeing the flashback. He follows a young woman. We kind of establish, like, who this person is, who we'll find in the basement as well. The wide angle lens, the aspect ratio, beautiful. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I would watch this film again, is to study that portion of it, and probably reference that portion of it, because again, that wide angle, the fucking aspect ratio, just everything was just really, really beautiful, to the point where I was hoping that we'd stay there even a little bit longer. But it got the information for the story across. He goes in, you already know that this guy's up to no good, and then he goes in towards the basement, and you hear a woman scream, and you're kind of like, okay, there is a real bad history. Then we get into the third act, and that's where it's like the main character kind of goes back, and because this douchebag is, like, stuck in there, me personally, bye. All right, I'm getting in the car. Have a great one. I don't know. Good luck with everything. You know what I mean? And I don't. Again, with horror films, I don't really do that, but with this one, I'm kind of like, well, we're kind of stretching her motivation a little bit. That's a really good person right there, And then towards the end, I'm kind of like, all right, this movie's too long again. Smile was a little too long. This was a little too long. again, I realize that, when you're in the editing bay, um, it's just how long it takes to tell the story for everything to make sense. And like I get it, but it was a little, um, I don't know, the whole fight at the end, and it's supposed to be a climax and stuff. I just thought was like, all right, it's time to go to Chipotle. I'm starving. So that's, by the Barbarian is a 6.8. And again, I think I don't, I'm going to watch the movies I actually really like to watch during Halloween, which is, Halloween is a brilliant film. Some of the, I like Nightmare on Elm Street 3. The fun kind of like 80s ones and stuff like that. You know, and then Rosemary's Baby or something like that. It's like, probably the week before, Halloween, I might throw those on. But I'm certainly, unless it's something that a really good filmmaker like Ty West is putting out, which obviously doesn't have anything coming out now. I'm kind of done with it. I like seeing movies in the cinema and stuff like that, but this has been really discouraging as far as, but the fact of the matter is this. I mean, Hollywood has always been the same way. It's not like the golden age of Hollywood was just great stuff all the time. It's a lot of Hollywood has always been a lot of propaganda and, just trying to entertain people, which is great, and other things. And every once in a while, there'd be like a David Lean film that's really, trying to say something and trying to be epic and stuff like that. And then you have the American New Wave, which these group of people really liked what was going on in Europe and stuff like that, and felt like they could bring those elements to American cinema and stuff like that. So it's just we need to, I think, really take a look at what we're doing with cinema right now, because it is being degraded for sure. Like there's in my opinion, there's way too much shit. Like people barely even hear of this stuff anymore because everybody's competing on the big streaming services, the major Hollywood studios, and then like just people on YouTube and TikTok and stuff like that. And you know, uh, and to approach with this kind of nihilistic message underneath. And what I mean by a nihilistic message is there's no fucking message at all from the filmmaker. It's a corporate message. It's just they want to, this is structured so that it will hopefully make some money, and that's it. And so, yeah, that's it for this one.